Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Thursday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing well out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I do hope everyone's been having a great week out there so far. There is much to talk about in this morning's video, and the first thing we will cover is the tropics. It'll be broken up into two different sections. One being a little bit closer to home. We're watching some energy over the Gulf that has a shot to develop. And then we'll switch gears and speak on way out in the Atlantic, the tropical Atlantic, the MDR, main development region. This is an area of the ocean that begins to get a little bit more active as we get more so into August, but you're already starting to see some changes out there as there is a lot of energy way out here in the Atlantic. Does anything have a shot to develop? What about in the next 10 days or so? We'll speak on all that, get very detailed, and then we'll speak on this awful pattern that will be in place over the next several days and bring a lot of nasty heat across areas of the country. And then we'll talk about today's weather. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below so I can pray over it, and it gives many others an opportunity to pray over it also. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is the Atlantic. We got the Gulf, we got the Caribbean, Southwest Atlantic, and this is the tropical Atlantic, the MDR, which stands for Main Development Region. So I'm going to draw on this. As always, let's make sure this is going to work for us, and it is. So this is some energy that we are watching. Some would say it's the leftovers of Invest 93L from last week, and I would say that some of the energy associated with it is certainly from that. It's basically pinwheeled around a ridge of high pressure and then gotten back off the coast of the southeast, and then now it's entered the Gulf and it's racing across the northern Gulf right now this morning. This does have a small window of time to develop, so we'll speak on that and any impact it's going to bring to the Gulf coastline and eventually into Texas over the next few days. We'll get that back off your screen. We continue to watch this energy here, but the National Hurricane Center does not even have an area of interest up for any of this anymore. And, the general theme out here in the tropical Atlantic is there's a lot of dry air on top of all this convection, which is indicated in these colors right here, which is, in the reds, the oranges, the blacks you're seeing bubbling up. This is colder cloud tops, which means we have some deep convection, taller updrafts. The taller these clouds go up in the atmosphere, the colder it gets, and this is indicated by these colors here. So we are going to continue to watch some more energy way over here off the, over Africa, eventually getting off the coast of Africa into the eastern Atlantic. So we could have some more waves. In fact, I think we really will over the next several days to emerge over the Atlantic, and that will have a shot to develop, I think, too. I wouldn't be surprised if sometime between now and over the weekend, we have another area of interest that gets introduced somewhere pretty much, over the tropical Atlantic. So we'll try to figure that out, but that's all the pieces to the puzzle, if you will, out here in the Atlantic that we're speaking on. Really nothing to be concerned about over the Caribbean as of right now, even though we're getting some, thunderstorm development kind of south of the Dominican Republic and Haiti here, Hispaniola. But as of right now, not expecting any tropical development out of that. We will watch this area up here as some energy could get off the coast, off the coast of the eastern U.S. But right now, not really worth much talking about there. So that's the huge picture. Now, as far as an update from the National Hurricane Center, we continue X marks the spot. That's where our kind of the center of our area we are watching over the Gulf is. And this is just a trough of a low pressure is what they're calling it. And this energy will continue to move over this, yellow area where we'll have a 10% chance to develop sometime in the next pretty much 48 hours. And after that, it just sort of runs out of water, runs out of time to develop. But there's still a chance for this to develop. And I do think there's some hurricane hunters going out into this today to see if this does have any true tropical characteristics, maybe some sort of defined low-level feature circulation. But as of right now, we're not concerned about this at all as far as development. Now, there's nothing showing up out here in the tropical Atlantic, but like I said, I would not be surprised if they issue a low risk of tropical development somewhere in this region over the next few days, maybe a 10 to 20% chance. But as of right now, nothing. So let's go on and just speak on this first, the area a little bit closer to home, because, well, it is a little bit closer to home here over the lower 48 and the Gulf and the Caribbean and stuff like that. So we're going to just take a look at the HUR model, and I just want you to watch as I put this in motion. We're starting it off this morning. You're going to see, a bit of a rotation with this, sort of a cyclonic spin. It's going to sort of go like this and like that as this sort of pushes this way. So let's get this in motion now, and starting off this morning, we start to get into this afternoon, and you can see it's just a broad spin out there. And it makes sense because this is lower pressure, and lower pressure does spin like that in the northern hemisphere. And I mean, listen, this is just bringing a lot of convection over the Gulf states here. And I mean, there's nothing defined about this. Just honestly, just showers and storms out across the central and northern Gulf. And of course, it's far enough north to affect the Gulf states, Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and Alabama. As we eventually get into tomorrow morning, I do think this is its window. If it's going to do something tricky, develop into some sort of depression or named storm, which, by the way, our next named storm is still Dexter. It's going to do it sometime tomorrow. And you can see how there's just more convection tomorrow, more shower and storm development. You can tell this is trying to do something. And as we eventually get into tomorrow evening, I wouldn't be surprised one bit if this, sneaks around and develops some sort of low-level circulation, one bit. But, as we are starting to get into, the middle of the night tomorrow night, looks like convection sort of settles down. But we'll see what happens tomorrow. I think tomorrow will be the day that we watch. But in general, even if this does, I think worst case scenario is this develops into a tropical depression, extremely low-end tropical storm. But man, that is definitely, that would be something that would be rare at this point if it happens. But, one last thing we'll look at regarding this, and we'll talk about how much rainfall this could drop in certain areas, is that 850 millibar of energy in the lower levels of the atmosphere. Does this sort of, really get its act together in the low levels? That's one thing we watch here. And you can see how there is a lot of energy associated with this lower pressure around 15Z tomorrow, which is about early to mid-morning tomorrow morning Zulu time. And you can tell it tries to get its act together right here, deeper energy, and then it runs into land. And of course, it's not going to develop over land. So it runs out of time, basically. It's got about, I would say, you might as well just call it 48 hours to do something. So last thing we'll look at here is impacts from this, just tropical rains. The further south you get it, and in the Gulf states, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, even the panhandle of Florida, the more rain you could potentially get. So this is actually rainfall between now and the next 4 or 5 days. A few inches of rain is possible, and this is really going to happen over the next really 48 to 72 hours. So you can see a few inches of rain in Mobile, Biloxi, Gulfport, down to Baton Rouge, and just taking a closer look to, say, Louisiana with this. A lot of rain for the southern half of Louisiana. You guys got, a lot of rain from the Invest last week. This is kind of the same energy associated with this, and just a few inches of rain over the next couple days in these areas. And we do need to watch the Texas coastline too. I do think this is going to bring some heavy rains into like Galveston, maybe as far west as Victoria, Beaumont, Houston. You'll probably get a half an inch to 1.5 inches of rain. Now, rainfall total certainly could increase in this area, but you certainly see that cutoff, and we definitely don't need any rain, west of this interstate corridor, because then we get into the catastrophic situation with the flash flooding that happened over here in, what was it, Kerrville? I believe that was the name. So we don't need none of that at all. Yeah, Kerrville. So it doesn't look like you guys are going to get a whole lot of rain over the next several days. So that's good news there. But speaking way out here in the Atlantic, do we have the 06Z? Let's see if we do. If we do it, yeah, where do we do? So 210 hours out. That's great. So latest model guidance. This is the GFS is still running, by the way. Folks, so starting off Saturday morning, there is a lower pressure here. It's like above a 1010 millibar low, so a very weak low pressure, and that wave is going to try to get its act together, but I really do think it'll encounter some wind shear as it gets closer to the Eastern Caribbean. But listen, the latest GFS really tries to get this together as we're getting to Monday morning. So this is some new. It gets to a sub 1010 millibar low, so it has a tropical wave. Heck, GFS, if this millibar is correct, not a forecast, this would be close to a tropical depression, and it does sneak this into the Eastern Caribbean now, where it deepens even more. And in fact, this is new to me. I'm pulling this up as we go, and it eventually weakens it as it gets into the Central Caribbean. But this is new. This is a little bit of new information here. And this is not a forecast, but it does maintain that tropical wave into the Eastern Caribbean. So we just got to watch stuff like this. Now, let's flip this back to the tropical Atlantic here. There's a wave behind it I'm watching. It's right here. It's still very weak. Does this try to do something? It doesn't survive. So, if we do go back and say, look at the OOZ, it looks exactly the same. And It does have the tropical energy here, though, and there is some energy we got to watch between, day, I would say 7 and 10. Some energy could get slung off the East Coast. And then what about after day 10? There's no point in really watching that too much, but there is, I think, still going to be some more tropical waves. Now, what about the Euro model, the operational run? Same thing will start off Saturday morning. It does not show much love at all to this wave that the GFS now tries to develop as it gets into the Lesser Antilles. But it does have sort of the leftovers of that tropical wave here in the Eastern Caribbean, but it doesn't develop into anything. Now, the Euro does like that wave behind it. Here it is. We're getting into, next Monday evening. We got a 10, 13 millibar low, another wave behind it. Euro and its ensemble guidance likes this low pressure here. And it continues to slowly gain a little bit more latitude. We get into about a week from today, and there is a wave there, but I mean, it falls apart for the most part. Now, there is a lot of tropical energy here in the green and the yellows, which indicates just a lot of shower and storm activity that's still out here in the Eastern Caribbean, but you can see the Eastern Atlantic. The Western Atlantic, east of the Lesser Antilles, you're not seeing a whole lot surviving. Now, what's interesting to me is the Euro AI model takes that wave that the Euro likes and it maintains it. It's right here. Gains some latitude, gets northeast of the Lesser Antilles about 9 to 10 days from now, and it actually tries to develop this way out past day 10. So we're starting to get a little bit of uptick in model guidance. Are we getting an uptick in a threatening scenario? No. But more tropical activity, we could be starting to see some signs of things waking up. Now, we look at the Euro ensemble, the EPS. This makes up 51 members, so you're going to see a bunch of low pressures be thrown up on your screen, a bunch of L's. This is just, in this specific output, it puts every low pressure out of the 51 ensemble mean on the map that develops into a notable low pressure. So this is starting off in getting into next Tuesday morning. You see a lot of members firing up. It likes the wave that eventually comes off Africa over the next few days. And as we move here in time, you can see that the signal for that low pressure continues to remain in place. We get about 7.5, 8 days from now, we still have low pressures kind of hanging around. And I do think if this wave survives, the Southwest Atlantic, which is this area right here, could be more favorable than, say, the central to maybe Western Atlantic, Southwest Atlantic, this area right here. So if this wave kind of survives, we might need to watch. Now, some energy, there's that signal for some energy getting thrown off the eastern coastline. So there's some low pressure showing up here. But that's a pretty decent signal. That's a little bit of an uptrend, and this has been around for the last few days. But still, it looks like at most 12, 13, 14 members at its highest signal out of like 51, which is still a pretty low percentage of members, 20, 25%. So we'll continue to watch this, guys. I think it definitely is worth paying attention to. And, one thing that I honestly think is bigger news is the heat this week. Now, before I get going into this, there's a lot of people, and I'm reading, man, people just want to put politics into everything. It's crazy. You could literally post, man, it is hot outside, and someone would think that you're trying to say that, someone would probably put it, some sort of politics in it and say that you're blaming climate change as it's hot outside. And all you said is that it's hot outside. And you can read between the lines on what people post in the comments. And listen, it's hot. I mean, it's a normal summer day is hot in the South. I mean, your average highs are anywhere from 89 to 93 degrees. So if you get temperatures that are 5 to 10 degrees above average, when your average high right now is already in the low 90s, I mean, then your actual high temperatures is probably around 100 degrees with the heat index, because we know that it's humid and all get out here in the South. It's probably closer to 105, 110. So, I mean, that's hot. It doesn't matter if it was that hot back in your day. It's still hot now. I mean, it's a fact. But anyways, enough of that. I like to get off on a side story every once in a while. That's the difference between this channel and many other channels, is we like to get distracted sometimes. Some people like it, some people don't. But as we're getting into tomorrow, just think of the red you see on your screen, and you're going to see some darker reds, and just these colors right into here. This is a ridge building. It gets very broad. It gets very entrenched, meaning it kind of digs roots, not literally like a tree, but it really just sticks around, right? It kind of sets up a tent and hangs out with us for a while. And as we're getting into Sunday, this ridge gets even stronger. You see those darker, anomalies here. And these darker heights, stronger heights, indicating a stronger ridge right in this place. And I mean, this thing is just positioned right over the entire southern half of the country and even central half of the country. This gets even stronger in the next week. And there's going to be a flow around this also where, we're probably going to get some thunderstorms kind of going, call them ridge riders, and they'll flow around this ridge. But in general, I mean, it is just blistering hot. This ridge is dominating the pattern. And right as we get to the end, sort of we get between day 7 and day 10, there is some hope as it looks like a buckle in the jet stream sets up right in here. And this could bring some cooler air. And I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But let's focus on what's right in front of us. And the ridge just sticks around. But it might position itself kind of around day 8, day 10, a little bit further west. So this will bring more hot air further west, maybe a cool down for the east. But in the medium term, it's going to be hot. We're going to look at the blend of all models as far as the projected high temperatures between now and pretty much into the first couple of days of August. So let's start off for tomorrow. High temperatures off the blend of all models going for the upper 90s to low 100s. Not outrageous, but one thing I want you to note is the heat index with this. And as we move here in time, the heat index is just brutal. 105 to 110 degrees in certain areas. Just hot, hot temperatures. Now we move back into this, and let's just keep this going. Saturday, not as bad, okay? Maybe I guess you could call it a break. Very hot all the way up into the Dakotas, Nebraska. And then we start to get into Sunday. The ridge impacts to the surface really begin to show up. We get into Sunday, 90s are hauling back in all the way up into Wisconsin. The corn sweat's going to be rocking, so it's going to be humid. These 90s will feel like well into the 100s. Monday, I mean, look at these high temperatures across the middle of the country. Kansas, Oklahoma, down to Arkansas, Louisiana, areas in northern Texas, Nebraska, Colorado. High temperatures will be in the low 100s in certain areas, 90s elsewhere. And then we get into Tuesday. You're starting to see a kind of a break from the heat up here. You're starting to see a sharp gradient. It's still blistering hot down here next Tuesday. 90s, 100s, and then that cool down sinks a little bit southward. But if you're not on the cooler side of this boundary, which is some sort of cold front that model guidance is really, really picking up on, you're still hotter than Hades south of this boundary. So 90s, 100s, nice fall air starting to move in. I say fall air, it's not fall, but fall-like air, right? And then we get into next Thursday, the 31st, week from today, and then we get into August 1st. And still hot for the south, but more run-of-the-mill summer type stuff, but there could be signs of a cool down, but it already starts to heat back up even as we get into like August 2nd and August 3rd for the middle of the country. But the east could start to get a bit of a cool down. But folks, just to spend a little bit more time on this, it's really the heat index that is just absolutely brutal. I mean, the feels like temperature. Let's get into Saturday. Not too bad, but we get into Sunday. The heat index all the way up into Iowa. I mean, there's areas that's going to be well over 110 degrees. Look at the Mississippi Delta heat index, 110. I'm going to argue it's probably going to be over 110. And then we start to get into Monday. Just brutal feels like temperatures out here. I mean, heat index is going to get maybe close to 110 all the way up into southern Wisconsin. So the heat is on, and just with a lot of moisture undercutting this ridge. This is going to do is just throw even more moisture up under this ridge and then add humidity to what's already very hot air temperatures. Now, the eastern U.S., we start off with high temperatures for tomorrow, and we'll get a little bit of break from the heat today. It's not going to be that bad, but as we are getting into tomorrow, the heat begins to flex again. Nothing too crazy, mid-upper 90s really ain't nothing for us here in the South. We can handle that. But you can see Georgia, the Carolinas, up into Virginia, in the mid-Atlantic, all the way up into southern New England. I mean, 90s. I mean, well into the 90s. Nothing too bad, I agree. But as we start to get into Saturday, high temperatures, into the low 100s expected in the areas of the Carolinas and Georgia. Okay? And then we start to get into Sunday. We could get to 102, 103, 104 degrees. I live here in Columbia, South Carolina, by the way. I'm not looking forward to this. I hate the heat. Even though I'm born and raised in the South, I'm not a fan of it. But I know that, these mid to upper 90s don't seem that bad across the deep South, but the heat indices will be absolutely brutal. And then we start to get into Monday. just look at these hundreds showing up across the panhandle of Florida. It's a lot harder to get to 100 degrees in Florida than it is, say, in Georgia and the Carolinas. I know you're thinking, well, how? Well, there's just more humid air. The air is harder to heat up when it's more humid. I know it doesn't make any sense. It kind of contradicts a heat index, but you got to think actual air temperature is not the same as the heat index. Heat index is just what it feels like. So, we start to get into Tuesday. We could have a several day stretch of high temperatures in the 100s for, I would say places like, Augusta, Columbia, to Fayetteville, Charlotte, I think could get over 100 degrees. In fact, local Mets in Charlotte are forecasting 100 or higher for about a 4 or 5 day stretch. So it's just going to be brutal heat. You might think, hey, we see this every summer. You're correct. We get this in stretches sometimes, in a lot of summers, but you can't lie to yourself and say that this has not been one of the hotter summers that we've seen in at least the last several years. And it's this heat wave, all it's going to do is stamp down even more that this is one of the hotter summers that we've seen. It's been brutal. It's just been more humid too. But as you get into the first day of August, hey, look at this cool down showing up. This could be a nice break. So once again, we'll look at heat indices just like we did for areas further, west. And heat index as we get into Friday, just well into the 100s, nothing too crazy. Heat index as we get into Saturday. Look at the Eastern Carolinas. Look everywhere, guys. Heat index well over 110. The humidity will be awful along the Carolina and Georgia and Virginia coastline. So your heat index is going to get well over 110. I wouldn't be surprised if some areas get to 115 degree heat index. That is brutal, feels like temperatures for Saturday. If you're going to the beach this weekend, it's going to be a hot one. Not a big fan of going to the beach when it's this hot. That's an 117 degree heat index reading here this coming Monday, like right outside of Charleston. Just 116 here in northern Florida. Just brutal heat and humidity. And some people might say, why use the word brutal? It's just normal summer type stuff. Listen, normal summer type heat to me is brutal. I'm not a fan. I'll say this. I used to kind of diss on the kids for not being able to go outside during the heat, the peak of the summer, and you don't see kids outside much anymore. And I'm trying to remember I know we all played outside. I'm 33 years old, and I remember playing outside regardless of how hot it was. But in a way, you can't blame these kids. When it gets to the prime of summer this time of the year, and it's 95 to 100 degrees outside, and it feels like it's 110, who wants to go outside unless you're swimming in a body of water? And listen, these ponds, these lakes in the South this time of the year, they're in the 90s. You're swimming in bath water. I'm not a big fan of going to the lake. I don't know about you guys, unless I'm getting slung around on a tube or I'm on a boat catching a breeze. But I've never understood the logic of going out on the boat in the middle of summer and in a lake that the water's not moving at all, and just dropping an anchor and just waiting and just kind of sitting in lake water that feels like it's 100 degrees. I'm not a big drinker. I know a lot of people who do that, go out there and drink, have a good time, but nothing about that sounds fun. I'd rather be in the ocean, getting waves, and having a lot more fun, playing in the water like that. But anyways, I'm getting off track. But this is temperatures compared to average, right? And so, you might think that 8 degrees above average don't seem that much. But when you're already in the peak hottest time of the year, and your average high, say in South or North Carolina, Virginia, might already be 88 to 93 degrees. So you get temperature anomalies that are, 5 to 10 degrees above average. That's highs in the low 100s in certain areas. That's hot. I don't care what anybody says. But we get into Monday, we get into Tuesday, we get into Wednesday, you see those warmer than average temperatures dominating. But I want you to notice as we get into late next week, below average temperatures begin to kind of cut that country in half to the north. So we kind of have a battleground of above average temperatures here and below average temperatures up here in the blue and green areas. Don't focus on if it's 7 to 8 degrees below or above average. Just think of the blues as a below average temperatures. But as we get into about day 7 to day 10, there is some signs that we're going to cool down. And even the Climate Prediction Center maps show this. Signs that we're going to cool down for the middle of the country, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, the Northeast, I think is a lock. But even into the Southeast, you see some of these blues showing up. Right as we start August, right as some of the kids start going back to school, might have some comfortable mornings. I'm really pulling for this. And, as we start to get several days in August, it shows up even more. So, is this fall 59-degree morning for like Birmingham, Alabama, Atlanta, Georgia? No, it's more than likely not. But is it maybe a few mornings in the upper 60s? Absolutely. I think that's very possible. So, anyways, we're done with that. Sorry about getting a little bit sidetracked this morning. Just, sometimes I think YouTube might hinder my videos getting out there a little bit more because of the length of my videos. And I do tend to kind of just go on and on and on. But I think that's what just makes my channel different. And I never want to get away from that. Just kind of going off on some side stories every once in a while. It's just what makes us here on this channel, right? So we're continuing to get this glitching feature, and this is starting to really irritate me on Weather Tab. I might have to reach out to them. But we're getting some rain moving across Iowa, northern Missouri, areas of Kansas. We got a lot of rain up here in eastern Canada. Outside of that, we got moisture dancing around the northern Gulf. But, there's not a whole lot to speak on. Now, watches, warnings, and advisories. Heat alerts is the big story. The orange is heat advisories. This purplish pink color, these are extreme heat warnings. We got extreme heat watches up for areas of West Virginia, Ohio. Some extreme heat warnings also up for New Jersey, Southeast PA, and the most northern county of Delaware. Flood watches are up for northern Missouri, areas of Kansas, New Mexico, and Colorado. But the heat's awful. And what we're going to see over the next few days is we're going to get a lot of heat alerts over these areas also. You can guarantee it. I almost promise you. We're going to get a lot of heat advisories, excessive heat watches, extreme heat warnings in that area too. So right now we don't have it because it's a little cooler right now, but it's going to heat up dramatically over the next 48 hours. Storm Prediction Center outlook, there's no slight risk. So, we're not going to zoom into many states this morning. I typically only do that, when we really have some slight risk to talk about, level 2 out of 5 or higher. But marginal risk goes up the spine of the northern plains, down to the southern plains, high plains, right across the middle of the plains, all the way into the Midwest, into the Great Lakes region, areas of the Ohio Valley. And just normal run-of-the-mill thunderstorm activity, nothing too crazy. Excessive rainfall outlook, this yellow area. So we have a 15% risk of flash flooding. So we do need to watch out for that. This goes from New Mexico all the way to Chicago. So pretty large area, has a 15% risk of flooding. So just be aware of that. But the Southeast today, they're really the only area to talk about. I will say, watch out for some tropical downpours, across South Carolina, really the eastern areas, across Florida, and then the most southern areas of the Gulf states. We're going to have some moisture from this low pressure in the northern Gulf that'll be spinning around, and, just taking a closer look at that here. And I'm actually just going to tell you guys the timing so I don't cut off anybody down here. This is 9 a.m., 10 a.m., lunchtime, 1, 2, 3, 4. We got a lot of downpours developing down here in the southern areas of Alabama, the Panhandle of Florida, southern areas of Mississippi. This is around 4 to 5 p.m. We get into the evening hours, and this stuff will begin to sort of chill out and calm down, and nothing too crazy at all. Nothing to worry about. If you are worried about the low pressure in the Gulf, I wouldn't if you live in Alabama, Mississippi. Nothing to worry about at all. The Northeast today is starting to warm up. You guys are south of a storm system in Canada, so I don't think you'll have to worry about any storms. But as we get into tomorrow morning, we're probably going to have some storms or just showers, especially up in northern Maine. We could get an area of heavy rain, so just be aware of that. But outside of that, there's not really a whole lot to talk about. South central U.S., we're just kind of watching this tropical moisture. I do think as early as later this evening around Beaumont, we could get some tropical downpours from this energy. Scattered showers and downpours and storms, some of which will be severe across the panhandle of Oklahoma, Texas, into Kansas. As we have some ridge riders, riding across this ridge, high pressure setting up across this area, but energy flowing on top of this ridge. So rain could be just moving over some of the same areas. A little bit of flash flooding is possible up here, and as we get into tomorrow morning. And rainfall, in this area between now and this is all the way out to about 7 p.m. Saturday. We got a few inches of rain showing up in Kansas. The Woodard area could get an inch of rain. Amarillo, half an inch. Guyman, inch or so of rain. Sharp cutoff, though, once you get in Oklahoma, central Oklahoma, Missouri, things like that. But a lot of rain in northern Missouri and Kansas is possible. North central U.S., we're going to get just a rainy morning and midday across the UP of Michigan as some energy is moving in. Some storms are possible in northern lower Michigan. And some more storms could develop in central to southern Wisconsin, southern Iowa, northern Missouri. You see those storms down there this evening. And we could just have a stormy evening across these areas. Chicago can get some storms into northern Indiana and to southwest lower Michigan. And eventually we get into tomorrow morning and another big plume of rain is starting to move into the area. Rainfall just between now and 7 p.m. tonight. A few inches of rain in Iowa, southern Minnesota, a couple inches of rain is possible. But there is an avenue up here. But this is the rain that's falling pretty much right now. So the western U.S., we're going to get numerous showers and storms once again across the Rockies and foothills and southeast areas of Wyoming. A little bit of shower activity is possible in northern Cal, northern Nevada this afternoon, southern Idaho, maybe southern Oregon. But outside of that, not much to speak on. Temperatures, it's heating up across the northeast all the way up into southeast Canada. But the brutal heat today is across the Mississippi Valley, especially I would say west of it. Your heat index will be over 110, 112, 113 degrees in areas of Arkansas and surrounding states. Actual air temperature will be over 100 in certain areas, upper 90s if not 100. But even the valleys of New York, it's going to heat way up today. Very hot temperatures. The ridge is moving in place and it's reflecting to the surface. And then this is the western U.S. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. I really want to make the tropics, the main story. But right now, the heat is the main story. I love talking about the tropics, but don't want to go all in on that until, there's something that we really, really need to pay attention to. And right now, I just honestly don't think there's a whole lot to pay attention to. There's just, I think this is just a classic hurricane season where we're just going to slowly build up an activity out there. It just does, to me, it doesn't look like the start of a hurricane season just, bang, just gets going and just doesn't stop. I think this is a slow build-up, but we'll continue to watch it. That's all I got. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon. God bless.